All right, in this section of the PowerPoint, we're going to be talking about Key Concept 2.1, so Christianity and also Judaism. Jews were conquered by the Romans fairly early on in their expansion, and this conquest turned, well, there was always a tense relationship between the two, but it especially turned very tense after the empire started because you were supposed to worship the emperor, right? So the Jews did not want to do that because they were monotheistic, and the persecution and the violence that they saw through the rebellions that were put down by the Romans led to a Jewish diaspora. And one example of this that we will see in class are merchant societies in India who were Jewish and moved there during Roman times because of that persecution. So moving into moving into Christianity, Jesus, who was Jewish at birth, or from birth, was was a Jewish teacher. He drew on those Jewish principles and initially rejected Roman and Hellenistic influences. The Romans rejected Jesus and his teachings because he talked about the kingdom ending and life everlasting, and those types of sentiments scared the Romans to death. They thought that he was starting a rebellion. Also, he was monotheistic, which, as we've already discussed, did not go well with them, and he rejected paying taxes to the emperor and also emperor worship. The Jews rejected Jesus because of claims to be the Messiah, and they did not believe that he was. They also rejected Jesus because he was very critical of their leadership. When he thought that many leaders were corrupt or too money hungry. You can see this in his anger in the temple, and eventually Jesus was executed as a common criminal. So the punishment that he got being crucified was for common criminals. The higher up you were in Roman society, the faster your death in crime, after quote unquote committing a crime. The lower down in society you were, the more horrific your death would be. And crucifixion is a very slow and painful death. So Christianity was dangerous to the Romans besides that because it appealed to an unhappy portion of their population, the disenfranchised women, slaves, and the poor. It also offered a chance of salvation, and its values were very different. Jesus talked a lot about turning the other cheek and nonviolence and acceptance, and these were things that the Romans were like, what? No, we're all about the violence, right? We've got these Roman legions tearing it up. Don't talk to us about pacifism. So that was another thing about Christianity that was dangerous to the Romans. So Romans were persecuted in a lot of different ways. We've probably all heard about Nero, who used, this is a little bit graphic, but used Christians as live torches at his dinner parties. So he would literally burn people alive. Christians were also used within, as other minorities were used in the Colosseum as bait for exotic animals. And they were killed in many other ways as well. But despite all this persecution, Christianity continued to spread by different Christian disciples, especially Paul of Tarsus. So remember this name. He's the guy who brings, many disciples were spreading Christianity through the Jewish circles. However, Paul decided to bring it to the laymen, like people outside of the Jewish circles. And he also wrote to new churches, which basically became many of the books of the New Testament of the Bible. to try to get people to on the same page. This painting up here is of the catacombs where the Christians used to have to meet in secret underneath different cities in Rome, like in France and in Rome. Um, the community leaders were the bishops, and in some areas, bishops were even women, which shows you the variation of doctrine. Um, there again, Paul tried to get everybody on the same page with his letters. They were also on different pages when it came to resurrection, like whether Jesus was divine when he after he died and rose again, or whether he was divine his whole existence. But there was a gradual acceptance of core texts through different meetings. Um, Rome eventually converted to Christianity. Christianity was kind of like a wheel that a snowball. It continued to get bigger as it rolled down the hill, and that led to acceptance among the elite. Christianity became tolerated with the Edict of Milan in 312. Oh, this picture, by the way, shows a woman bishop. Constantine is the first, usually accepted as the first Roman emperor to convert in 337. He converted on his deathbed, by the way, and probably this was during a time when he was basically calling on all gods because he wanted to survive. And then Theodosius makes it the official religion of Rome in 380. So this, by the way, is all during the time of Rome's decline. So kind of interesting. Um, Christianity could not have spread as rapidly without the Roman Empire. So the Romans persecuted Christianity, but they also allowed it to flourish because they had these incredibly stable sea lanes, and they also had this great system of roads which the disciples used to spread Christianity. And this you see the route that Paul took around Christianity, or excuse me, around these different areas. I went to this place, Ephesus, and actually saw the island where Paul stayed and wrote some of his texts. It was pretty neat. You can see areas where there's a Christian majority, which this is modern day Turkey, but there was a Christian majority there. Also over in this area here, right around Carthage, and then a Christian minority. Christians in Egypt, Coptic Christians, their Christianity is even older than the sect of Catholic Christianity. And then there's also these areas of Christian minority. We'll see that a little bit more on this next map. Christian areas in 300 are the dark blue. Areas that were Christianized between 300 and 600 are in the light blue. And later on, 600 to 800. These cities, these were areas that had monasteries and also were areas of Christian diffusion. So there's that where I went to Ephesus. Okay, and in the last part of this PowerPoint, we're going to go over how Rome declined and fell.